I'm fairly new to English paper piecing. I'm definitely no expert at it. I do have one particular project that I did, and I don't have it with me. It's actually on the boat where we live during the wintertime. We haven't gotten down there yet. And I did the traditional way of making the English paper piecing. After I got done with that, I have to just say that I wasn't particularly thrilled with all the prep that you needed to do, basting around the cards and then sewing them together, and then afterwards you have to pull your basting out, your cards out, all of that. It just wasn't exactly thrilling for me. I thought there has to be a better way. So I kind of went back to my days of, doing hand sewing when I was a little girl, and before I got to, start working on a sewing machine, I did a lot of hand sewing. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do like I did when I was doing hand sewing. So here's how I started. I will show you here, this is a piece. These are some blocks that I've made doing the English paper piecing, but in the way that I'm going to show you how I do it now. And you can see, it looks just like your regular English paper piecing, and it's got the nice seams on the back, the pretty little star shape in the middle from the points coming together. So here's how I started this. I took the shape, and in this case, we're going to be doing the hexagon. I took the shape, the finished size, and I traced it onto some cardstock. Don't go out and buy cardstock. If you get any of those fat quarters like from Joann Fabrics, you're going to get a lot of times these cards that are inside. And I keep all of these. These are great for making templates and patterns for things. Also, another thing, if you don't have any of those, is taking some greeting cards and using them for making templates. So what I did is I took my finished shape, which is the hexagon, and I traced it onto my cardstock. And then using my clear quilting ruler, I added around the outside 3/8 of an inch, and that's going to be my seam allowance, but it's also going to be creating a window for me for doing placement on my fabric so I can do fussy cutting. So from here, I'm going to cut this out, and I do need to cut the outermost lines. I need to cut the bigger shape out, and then I need to cut on the inside lines. So I'm going to be making a hole on the inside. I'm going to use a rotary cutter. You can also use an X-Acto knife, especially on the inside, just to get those inside corners done. So I will come back after I have that finished. All right, I have my shape cut out, and I do use the rotary tool to cut the whole thing out. The miniature one, I think this is like, what, an inch or so? Anyway, this one works really well. You just overlap a little bit on those inside corners, and it pops right out. So what I'm going to do now is actually trace this shape, and I'm using a heat erase pen, and I'm going to trace all around the shape, both on the outside lines and on the inside. Inside line is marking my stitching line. I am using a very plain fabric. This wouldn't be something I would necessarily use when I'm doing the English paper piecing. You can join up your lines so you only have to cut that side once. You can abut those two if you like. Anyway, as I was saying, this isn't the fabric I would normally use, but I figured something solid like this would show up really well for me to do this demonstration. Using my rotary cutter and my ruler, I'm going to cut these shapes out, and I'm just cutting on these outside lines. Do not cut a hole in the center. This is our stitch line, not our cutting line on the inside. An added side note, you could actually do a little stack of like maybe 4 or 5 or something like that and cut them all at the same time. The cutting lines aren't as crucial as your inside stitch lines. So take the pieces and put them right sides together, and using a pin, pierce that corner. Then I'm going to pierce the corner on the front one. That way I have that stitch line at the beginning precisely marked. Pierce the back. Wow, did pretty good. So once I have my two corners precisely marked, I'm just going to put my pins in. I'm using a black thread just so that you can see really well, but obviously you'd want to use a thread that matches more closely to your fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first pin out where I'm going to start my stitching, and I'm going to go down right through that corner, and because I'm holding it with my finger it shouldn't have moved, but you check on the back, make sure you're coming through that point, and you've established now the beginning. And so what I like to do is just do a little running stitch, and every time I go back I'm checking to be sure that I'm right on that line. And this actually goes fairly quickly, but I do tiny little stitches, keeping on my line. If I need to go back a little bit, I can, but always checking. I'll do one more stitch forward and pull through. Okay, I'll go ahead and take my pin out this point and try and pop up right on that corner. Make sure I'm doing good back there. Looks great. And pull it through. And you don't have to do, as many stitches all at one time. I'm going to make just a little tiny back stitch, and then just wrap my thread around and pull the needle through to make a knot. So we'll go ahead and add on the next piece. Now, it is not necessary to snip your thread and start over with a new knot. Since I've already made the knot, it's all good. And also something I want to point out is that while you're working on this, you do not want to use an iron to press your seams open. I'm just kind of pressing that over out of the way. If you use an iron to do that, you're going to actually lose, that's right, you'll lose your lines that you drew on there, and you don't want to lose those. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before to get started. I'm going to take my pin, poke it through that point, and then match it up. Just finish sewing right there. That's okay, we'll leave that right there. And we will establish our other point. Put that in. Okay. So I'm making sure that this seam allowance for this one is out of the way, that I'm not joining that into that first stitch. But I'm going to go ahead and pull. I'm keeping my fingers on the fabric to hold it together in that position. I'm going to pull my pin out, go down through the point. Now because I made a knot, it's not going to undo what I already did. So just like before, following the lines, and this is a little odd. I'm going to start my stitching. It's a little off, so I make the adjustment. There we go. And take that last pin out. Just do one little back stitch. Wrap thread around the needle. Pull it through for my knot. And then I have the second one sewn on. So my thread's getting short, so I'm going to go ahead and snip the tail. And there we have those joined together. So I'm going to be working my way around this particular one. I'll do a hexagon on each edge of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more to go. And then I'll show you how I finger press those out. So I'm going to show you how I typically start the next one. Pin in for this corner. Because it's already sewn here and I got my point set and I'm going to be starting my needle right there anyway, I go ahead and I start, get that push through, check the make sure that I'm not coming through that particular one. And I'll go ahead and set this pin. And I can start sewing now. Well, there they are. All the little hexies are sewn together. On the back side, I did finger press the seams open. And like when you get around a center one, it's pretty much like how you do it around those cards if you know, your little paper templates. But, you know, you press them open and then just fold the corners down. And, you know, this is good enough for now while you're working on it. You certainly don't want to use an iron at this point, because you don't want to lose the lines, especially for the ones you still have to sew onto. If you have one of those little tiny miniature irons, you could certainly go in and press the, you know, where you are done and you want to have that nice crisp look to it. That's how you do it. That's how you sew these together without having to use those paper templates that you have on the inside. And it just takes away so many steps that I feel like I can just get so much done by eliminating all those other steps. Are just really not necessary. I will admit that there is a certain satisfaction to seeing, you know, your assembly all crisp and firm, you know, when you have all those papers still inside. But you know what, I can forego that because this is just so much faster, and it actually makes me want to do English paper piecing versus the other way. It just did not hold any appeal. So if this is helpful to you and you want to give it a try, I hope you let me know about it and show me what you've been doing. Yeah, go over to my Facebook page, Heidi Creates 1965, and post some images of what you're doing. And also below here, if you have any questions, comments, please leave them. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, I hope you are all staying happy, healthy, and until next time, have a great one. Bye for now.